This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium. Episode 77, The Road to the Final. Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson.
So welcome to a very professional podcast that you have been listening to, well, you know, for forever, right? We have a huge, it's not really an announcement because hopefully you've known, but we just need to start this the right way and say that if you're listening to this the week it comes out, this Saturday, the finals of the first... And probably only. But definitely the first. Space Cat's Peace Turtles Patreon tournament. Is ending. We have 6 players, and only one of them is gonna win. And you can watch this. The game starts at 2:30 Central
American
time.
Central Daylight Time, I guess.
What, 12:30 Pacific?
Yep.
And then
4:30
Eastern?
I know it's morning in Australia because of Mage. That's the only reason it's happening this late. So, and I think that means weird things for Europe. Europe, you might catch, if you wake up early, you can catch the end of the game, I think is what that means.
Right. 3:30 Eastern. I'm sorry. That's right. 3:30 Eastern.
But,
and so we will be streaming it on Twitch, like we did the very final knockout game. I can promise that myself will be there. EJ will be there. We will be drinking. It will be a no advice stream.
That's very important,
dumb stream.
Actually.
Yeah.
You'll straight up get banned out of chat. You'll be like put in timeout if you give like what is deemed excessive advice.
Right. I will delete it if you try and kind of play for the players. Reacting to what's going on, obviously super fine. Like even I think giving your take on it.
Right.
But if you're basically trying to tell the players how to play or like give them any kind of knowledge that they, probably shouldn't have, or just even, like...
The point here being, the players won't be watching the stream. They're not supposed to. But it's a little bit of an honor system thing, so we don't want to give them any information they would get. The stream will not have any hand information. You won't know anybody's secrets. You won't know anybody's action cards, and you won't hear any of our commentary from Root and I. The video that we've been releasing, all the videos that we've been putting on our YouTube page, that'll come out a couple days. Hopefully within 3 days, we'll have the finals video on our YouTube page.
Right.
But the Twitch is a way for everyone to get hyped about it, come and hang out, and just enjoy it, and have a watch party with Hunter and EJ.
Yeah. It's just going to be a goofy watch party. I will say this. So kickoff for the game is that time we just gave you, 2:30 Central, 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm committed to starting about an hour early, so there will be a bit of a pre-show of probably me and EJ and Matt and Root kind of hanging out, talking about the game, maybe basically recording a little impromptu podcast before, talking about, just giving kind of hot takes as the game starts. And I mean, tune in for that if you're interested. But I know I'm gonna wake up like it's Christmas, basically, and just be so excited to be at the end of this really giant, really giant undertaking that we both set out to do.
We've been working on this tournament really since we left Gen Con, but especially since October of 2018. That's how long we've been actively putting time and effort into
and
this
it's
tournament.
About to be
and it's almost
done.
Over.
It's about to be done, and that is
the finish
so
line
wild.
Is there. It's funny because there will be one winner of the tournament, but there will be 2 more winners right here at home.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. Me and Matt are going to give ourselves trophies for sure. So what are we doing today, Matt? We have this huge thing happening this Saturday.
Yep.
2:30 Central.
Today,
12:30 Pacific.
We got to give
3:30 Eastern. I want people to watch.
Today's the roadmap. Today's the roadmap to the finals. we've got to we're not really gonna go like we've been doing recaps of all the games, right? You can listen to all these previous episodes and you can kind of figure out where these players are coming from, but we want to dial in to each player today, and to do that we actually sat down with each of these players individually and we talked through their play styles. We wanted to get a better idea of how these players approach the game so that we can know a little bit better about what to look out for when we're watching this finals game, right? With all these other games, it's just been like, I don't know, it's 108 people played in this tournament. That's how many people we watched play TI. I didn't get to dive in deep into each person's psyche, but this is like our opportunity to do that. We've seen multiple games out of each of these players, and we can talk to them about why they made certain decisions and how they think about trying to win. What does a win look like for them? So that's going to be what today is. We're going to kind of bounce back and forth. We're going to let you hear the interviews that we did with these players, and then Hunter and I are going to kind of try this thing of basically we're going to spell out what each player's victory would look like. Like if so and so wins, based on their play style, what does their win probably look like? What is the ideal circumstances for them to win?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of just kind of using their own words and being charitable to their play style and just saying like, if Saturday is a good day for them, what does that typically look like for this player when it's a good day for them? And not just simply like, oh, they won because they got 10 points or whatever. But so we're going to do that and maybe throw in like one little, like not necessarily a salty idea, more of a just like what does it look like if they lose? Just a little bit of that.
What's their Achilles heel maybe? Or just where's something fall apart for them?
And I think a lot of it will be obvious. We'll say, you know, like what a good day for them is, and then a lot of times if you say what a good day is, it's pretty obvious what a bad day looks like, right?
Definitely.
If you say a good day is the sun is shining, then I assume a bad day is that it isn't.
There's no more sun, then it's gone, and we're all frozen.
That's just the me and Matt stuff, and whatever. You get that all the time. You don't care. What's great about this episode is that we have 6 special guests on it. You're gonna hear from each of them. And do we want to go ahead and get into the very first one?
Badly, because this is already going to be you're in for a long ride, folks. So let's go ahead and go to our first one, which is going to be our player Vaunt.
Right. Let's go to Matt and Vaunt.
All right, and we are now joined with Vaunt. Vaunt, say hello to the listeners.
Hello, world.
So, Vaunt, I want to dive right into it with you because you're a straight shooter, and I feel like I have to match that level. I got to be a straight shooter right there with you. So,
Absolutely.
If anybody's watched your games, they'll know you are just a very, very clear communicator. And you were kind of telling me what did you go to school for?
My major.
What's your training in?
Sure. My official training is in international political economy and diplomacy.
If that ain't the most TI stuff I've ever heard in my whole life, I don't know what is. I just feel like no one has. So Nine of Spades used to be a professional poker player, and I was like, oh wow, that's really well suited. But hearing that from you is like, oh, that makes like all the sense in the world, especially for the kind of player you are, because I would certainly define you as a diplomatic player, and I would use that in opposition to any sort of definition of like political or like meta-gamey. I don't think you try to get in people's heads in the way that, you know, we kind of categorize someone like Schroeder is doing, or just more importantly, you're not trying to, you never use subterfuge or anything like that against your opponents. What I see you always doing is you come to the table, you are ready to negotiate with them in all instances and see what you can get out of every single moment within the game. Is that kind of a fair assessment of how you approach TI?
It's a reasonably fair assessment. The only thing I want to say is that you get a lot more profit out of being polite. It doesn't really cost me anything to ask nicely and say, oh, I'm intending to take that system that belongs to you. If they are willing to make me an offer that's worth more than what I was going to get out of it, of course I'll take that counter deal instead.
Right. But that politeness is not honor, right? I mean, we've seen plenty of players who are like, I never break a single deal ever, and I hold true to that, and you can always trust that I'm going to hold true on any of my non-binding deals. But I feel like we've seen you break plenty of non-binding deals, so politeness is not the same as honor for you. You're happy to break a deal,
So the only caveat I have is that whenever I would break a deal, it would be in contention with keeping the deal for any future potential deals of value that could be made out there.
Of course. Yeah, as long as it is maximum benefit to break the deal, then you might consider breaking the deal. But even then, you present your case to the opponent that you might be breaking the deal with. You always give them an out, I've noticed. And more importantly, it seems like you always... I've never seen you... activate someone's system without telling you you're going to activate it first. Can you explain what the purpose of that is in why you... I mean, not once have you ever activated someone's systems before giving them a chance to talk about it.
I mean, well, what does it cost me? Like, if I activate the system, there's no more discussion that can occur. It's done. It's locked in. But if I say, you have a very undefended planet over there, I'm intending to take it, and I give them the opportunity to make a counteroffer, it could give me, as I said, more than what I was going to get before, or even my desires out of it. If they offer me support for the throne, trade goods, or whatever, then that's valuable, and it didn't cost me the command counter. But fundamentally, it's about extracting that value and potential opportunity for collusion that I'm really looking for. Yeah.
Do you feel like you as a player miss out on anything because you aren't sneakier, I guess? I wonder if you're jealous of players that are sneaky, or if you see that you're getting a leg up on them.
I do not feel jealous because, in my opinion, the sneakiness that they do may give them temporary short-term advantages, which of course can compound as the game goes on. But if you're forthright about what you're asking for and what you're willing to offer, it really cuts through a lot of concern people may have. And so if there's a tiebreaker or they want to deal forthright with someone, they'll point to me as opposed to this treacherous snake on the other side. And that's really the best defense. Is I don't even have to defend. They willingly work with me instead.
Right. And we've seen that in action. I mean, we have seen plays in the tournament where, because you were constantly like, hey, I'm thinking about activating your system, what do you think about that, we've seen people essentially return that favor. I mean, there are players where I would have expected them to just jump on a system of yours because it had the tech skip they needed or whatever it was, but instead they go, this is Vaunt, I should, I kind of owe it to him to see what he'll... If anything, it's not just because they know you're nice. It seems like it's because they know you're always willing to see that there could be a counter offer. You offered them the opportunity for a counter offer. They might as well offer you the opportunity for a counter offer because they know you're not blind to that opportunity.
Exactly. It's the diplomatic mirroring, so they'll respect me the same way I respect them. And it's true, like, by doing it the first time, how many other times will I get that profit back towards me later on? Where if I was underhanded, they'd be like, that snake, I'm just going to step on him and, crush him down without listening to any of those filthy lies he may be trying to spew.
It feels like if Hunter were here, he would be calling me out for, like, being so into the strategy, because he knows that you would walk all over. I mean, you would just like wipe my face in the mud with that strategy, because that's all I am, is a slimy, no good backstabber.
See, but the thing is, like, if you're a backstabber, I can deal with you. I understand that because I'll be ready for your inevitable betrayal as well.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. In your two games, you were in the prelims and then you won your semis game. The prelims game I would define by huge early game, and then obviously a devastating loss on an agenda in kind of the mid to late game, but then you managed to hold on, and it was a little bit of like convenient objectives for what you had already done, but I made special note of you did the hardest objectives first. In your previous game, you were the only player who had done tech skips and traits already, so of course all you have to do is coast on resources and trade goods and influence and all that stuff. And your semis game was almost kind of the opposite story. You were Necro, and you decided not to score points in the first round or two, and opted to like really build up this scary bubble around your pie slice. I mean, you took both equidistance, you were getting tech left and right, and once again the objectives seemed to reward you, but more importantly, I don't know what objectives you wouldn't have been able to score in the late game of your semis game, because by round 3 you had already started to like balloon out of control. So for you, what is like the key difference between those games, and how did you adjust your play style depending on those games? But then also, what do you think was like the most consistent thing between those two games? What was just like purely Vaunt, and why did Vaunt win those two games, even though they had a very different storyline to them?
Interesting. So from my point of view, I consider both games to be the same execution of the same strategy.
Right.
So to break it down, the first game, being Barony and getting everything I had and everything I wanted, the core idea is you take care of the hard stuff first so that you don't have to scrabble for it at the end. Absolutely. And then you try to build your overwhelming might. Even though I got cut down for it, I was able to still crawl to the finish line. But when I was a Necro, in the same way, just in a different direction, establishing that overwhelming might so that I could execute and get the objectives with impunity was basically what I was trying to do. The only other thing to call out about the second game was because my neighbor was Jolnar, and he was doing some crazy things, I was hyper paranoid that I had to be the one to defeat him. Which means I had to make the choice early on to not get some of those objectives, but instead focus on a board position so I could have the resources to not only hold off any treachery from Nalu or Jolnar's cat's paw or whatever, but also be able to crush Jolnar when he inevitably betrays me.
Right. Well, and you really showcased that by, I mean, you and Nalu did a pretty early support for the throne. I think Nalu incentivized to do it because they saw how big your footprint was getting and went, you know what, I don't need to be
in fact,
up against this
That's
person.
the exact point. He offered me the swap. And I'm like,
exactly.
Then that's fine. I'll accept that deal.
And you had already sort of been establishing a foothold in Jolnar's slice, and because Jolnar was kind of off gallivanting in Barony's home system, it gave you the time that you needed to secure, I don't want to say dominance over Jolnar, but secure that position of like, hey, you're not going to get away with anything. Now I'm like all up in your slice, and I think that was, it was a good read of the situation more than anything. And I think you do more than a lot of players. Not that, I mean, there's been plenty of players in the semis that do this, but you do like to take your time when it is necessary, right? I mean, you will sit there and plot out. You're like me in the sense of you'll sit for like 5 or so minutes and then pass, right? Because you need to exhaust all possible options and then go, actually passing is the smartest thing right now.
So the only thing I want to call out about that situation is that I play chess, so I'm very comfortable with the clock running and using it as a resource.
Right.
But on the same time, I don't like wasting time and being paralyzed by inaction. So I want to be adroit, and I want to be quick to choose, but choosing correctly.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that time management thing is something important too, because you use that time in only the moments that are necessary. Similar to other people, we're talking about the meta play. We never see you making long-winded deals. You come to the table. Honestly, most of the time you come to the table and saying, what do you want? And you it seems like you always let your opponent make an offer before you suggest anything you're wanting to get out of the deal. Is that something you employ like intentionally, or do you think it's just kind of a happenstance?
Well, I mean, usually I'm clear. I want this, and I say that's usually open. Is I'm looking to get some trade goods, or I'm looking to take the system, and then I let them make their counter argument. Yeah,
and it seems like plenty of times you end up getting maybe more than you even expected out of it, which is,
absolutely
which is great. But then more importantly, in situations where they don't offer up what you want, you are lightning fast at being like, oh, no, sorry, okay, my deepest apologies. No, I didn't mean, if you were going to activate someone's system and they were like, I'm going to throw my game and do everything I can to hurt you, you're like, oh, well then, why would I even consider it? You immediately get back on their good graces, and I think that's kind of a fascinating, again, diplomatic approach to those situations.
So it absolutely is a sense that why would I want to engender animosity towards me for no particular reason, right? I feel that some people make plays that may tactically give them what they want, but hurt them overall in the long run, far more than taking the planet was worth.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, awesome. This has been super enlightening. I love hearing how you think about kind of just the board presence and everything. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show today. So I loved that conversation with
Yeah.
Vaunt because here's the interesting thing about Vaunt. And you'll hear this. If you go back and watch his prelims game, you'll hear me pretty audibly like not being that impressed with his play.
Right.
I think from an outside perspective, Vaunt doesn't look like an incredibly talented player. Because the things that Vaunt is doing, Vaunt is a pretty social player. He's fairly meta, not dependent, but like he is a part of the meta. And when Vaunt wins, it looks like he got lucky all game.
Right.
But the thing is, we've seen 2 games where he looked incredibly lucky, and it's kind of like, really? Did he just get that lucky twice, or did he do really good meta manipulation to steer people in different directions and get good deals? Vaunt is the kind of player who he's a trained diplomat. Like that is his whole thing. He knows what he's doing when he's talking to other people. He went to school for it. So we saw Vaunt win as the Barony Aletnev with a huge, basically runaway victory that even though he had a disastrous agenda, he still climbed back from it, and a Necro win that was just like he's unstoppable in the late game. There's nothing you can do to touch him. So to me, if we're going to make this case for like what does a Vaunt victory look like, and not just basing off of exactly what we've seen, a Vaunt victory is him slowly accruing the better end of multiple deals, most of them for positional advantage.
Right.
Sure, he does a little bit of trade good wheeling and dealing, but more than anything, what he's doing is trying to offer up, like, I want to help you get this point so that I can get this point. And he comes by it incredibly honestly, but his honesty is very different than his honor. He will break a deal, but he's very open about, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be breaking this deal now. So
I like using
up.
the word openness to describe it
Yeah.
because he is a diplomat. I think he understands that you do have to approach the table with a kind of honesty and openness.
Right. As he said this numerous times in the interview, but it's like there's no cost to being open.
Right.
There's no cost to that. You don't lose anything by being open.
Right. You don't have to spend a CC or anything.
Right.
The nugget I have for this, based off watching the games and talking with Matt, is that Vaunt's win will look like teamwork.
Yes.
And that team, I hope you could hear the air quotes that I was putting around teamwork, because it's teamwork, but then Vaunt wins.
Right.
Basically.
Right. And to the other players, they'll be like, oh, I guess Vaunt got lucky, but it's like, it will look like luck and teamwork, whereas it was like, no, that was Vaunt the entire game controlling the situation. So the flip side of that question then is, where does this fall apart? Now, the problem is we haven't seen Vaunt lose a game yet. He's one of our, one of our semifinalist winners rather than going into a knockout round. So we have to sort of make assumptions about what a loss for Vaunt would look like.
Because we haven't seen it.
Right. So I think more than anything, it's him being unable to convince a risk taker to turn their sights elsewhere. Right. A lot of his play is being nice to someone, getting them what they want and what they need. And if some player was just like, I don't actually want to make any more deals with you, I just want to take from you, and you can't convince me not to activate your system, that's where I think his play will fall apart, and he'll just start having stuff taken from him, and he won't have a strong rebuttal against that. Right.
It's if he doesn't have any leverage in the negotiations, and if his diplomacy does not work, then essentially I think it's I think more of a, how do the players feel about Vaunt?
Yeah,
basically.
Right. It's, to me, it's the you lay it, you play it rule with command counters is very important to Vaunt. Vaunt does not want you to lay that command counter down more than anything else. He will do anything he can to make you not activate his stuff. But if we have a player who's just like, nope, going there, doing it, and just drops it right away,
right?
He doesn't usually. It doesn't seem like that's in his bag of tricks of like how to respond to that.
Right. Well, that's interesting. Who do we have next, Matt?
You talked to Unaligned Magi.
I talked to Unaligned Magi. So I am here with Unaligned Magi, and I've got all my Magi gear on. I've got my little Magi helmet. I've got my foam finger. I'm excited. This is the moment of my life to be here with you today. Magi, tell everybody your first name. Reveal yourself a little.
My first name is Paul.
Paul. And what do you do, Paul?
I am a software developer.
Software developer. And what's you have a bit of a history with board games of this type? Not just Twilight Imperium is not your first horse, as they say. That is a phrase I'm coining right now. Your first horse.
Yeah, a couple of years ago I was kind of tired of playing video games, and I got pretty heavily into board games. Played a lot of strategy games, but I got real into Eclipse before I'd ever played TI, and played in some tournaments at Gen Con. Then I discovered the light of TI, and at first I hated the RNG, but I've come to embrace it. So
that's great. I've actually never played Eclipse, and I'm curious, what do, like, as far as the Eclipse culture is concerned, what do they think of TI? Are there people that are kind of like, that game is, overly complicated, or like, I'm not really sure what the critique would be.
Yeah, I've found that pretty much every Eclipse player who plays Eclipse a lot either loves or hates TI.
Yeah.
It's a game where it has RNG, but you can mitigate all of it. There's no aspect of the RNG that you can't almost reduce to zero. And I think that's what a lot of that's when I was first playing Eclipse, and then I tried out TI. I was like, oh my gosh, the best ship is a Dreadnought hitting on a 5. Like, that's only 60% chance to hit.
Right.
That's not very good, but
right. Yeah, that's not super reassuring as far as RNG is concerned. That's an interesting way to put it. That actually makes Eclipse sound a little bit intriguing for me. So maybe we'll completely quit talking about Twilight Imperium after this, and just talk about, well, maybe we'll just be an Eclipse show. I think everybody would love that, right? They would just be like, oh, great, we're just gonna turn the ship around and go wherever we want to with this. So, Paul, watching your games in preparation for this big kind of finals round, the thing I feel like I've noticed about you is you don't really make a lot of mistakes, and you are very it feels like you're very specific, and it always feels like you have a very you have your eye kind of on like leverage, it feels. But how would you describe your style as a Twilight Imperium player?
I would say I don't like to take chances. I like to kind of plan my whole round out and know, okay, unless someone hits me really hard, everything is going to go the way I want it to go. I pick one public objective. I say that is the objective I'm going to score. I look at how many tactics and strategy counters I have, how many I can buy, and say, okay, I need to figure out exactly what strategies, secondaries I'm going to do. Everything else goes into tactics unless I need to bump up my fleet supply, plan all that out ahead of time, and then just kind of execute the plan. Yeah.
You're very like methodical, I feel like would be a good descriptor for like your style of play. I also feel like you kind of have a very specific view of like the value of certain the economy of TI, and also the trade strategy card. Could you talk a little bit about that for me?
Yeah, so I've looked a lot at planet values and strategy card values, what you're really getting out of them, because I noticed that once I was playing with a lot of players who play a lot, leadership, warfare, tech, and trade are kind of always the first 4 picks. And then the 5th player goes, well, I guess I'll take politics because I don't want last pick next round. And then the 6th player goes, well, I guess I'll take construction. And there's always a question like, why is that happening? And in my mind, those first 4 picks all kind of have the same value, but trade has the potential to really go beyond that. You can curry favor with other players and be owed favors. You can you can use those trade goods to build ships or research tech or buy command counters, whatever you really need it for when the time comes. And then almost half the objectives are, public objectives anyway, are spend stuff. So trade goods are just fantastic to have, and they can even be banked. I really like that flexibility and that ability to no matter what's happening, I can kind of mitigate the situation.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of not a lot, but a higher portion of the players in the finals have more of a kind of deal-making slant to them. And it's interesting that you say that you're into trade. What do you feel like your like kind of philosophy or stance on like making deals or excessive deal making as you might see it, or as I might even see it sometimes? How do you feel about that type of meta?
Yeah, so I always want to have the upper hand. I want to be dictating the terms, and I don't want someone else to be able to say, well, if you don't do this, I can make your life difficult. Right. I want to come to the table and say, here's the deal. You can accept it or you don't. And them to go, well, if I don't, he can really put the hurt on me. And typically I build a lot of ships in the first round of the game, sometimes even the second round of the game, just to make sure that I'm in that position where you don't want them to be like terrified of you, but you want them to always have it in the back of their mind that the other person is stronger, and if you don't do what they want, they could hurt you.
Right.
And right. It just comes down to, if you're in the position of power, you can always just be like, hey, 3-for-3 trade, and you want to trade support for the friends? I like to build up a lot of plastic on the board, and then go, okay, who am I going to hurt and who am I going to be friends with? Support swap with one player, hurt the other one, take their planets, score my objectives, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I think in watching you play, I almost feel like I want to take a look at the factions again to kind of say which ones can really like play to that spirit, basically. Because I think me and Matt have really come into the game from a perspective of just kind of wildly chasing after objectives in the early to mid game. And I feel like in watching you play and a couple other players in the tournament, there's a real emphasis on like leverage being like one of the more important aspects of the game. And I feel like you are a player that prioritizes having leverage over some of the other players. What do you feel like in the tournament thus far has been like either the most difficult choice that you've had to make, or like the best example of like you as a player?
I would say in the prelims game, I had Sardak to my left. I took trade 4 times, but
right.
I don't usually do that. But
nobody normally gets to do that. That's what you should be saying.
But round 3, I had political stability, so I was able to kind of force it. But in that game, I was taking trade to make sure, because I was playing Necro, I had Sardak to my left, and in an even fight, Sardak wins. And to my right, I had Yin, and Yin can indoctrinate, and it's gonna make taking their planets really difficult.
Right.
But I was trading with Sardak a lot to kind of stay friends, but I waited for him to leave the system in front of his home open, and I waited until then to jump on him. I didn't want to. He had a lot of ships in his home system. We had a lot in Ring 1. I don't like even fights. I want, when I go into the fight, to just smash and take what I'm gonna take, and then when they counterattack, they've already lost some plastic. Especially if you have more ships than them, and then you destroy some of their ships, your advantage kind of gets amplified by that. So. I guess that, and then I jumped on Yin also and blockaded his home system when I had the chance. But
yeah, I would say your game was very, very crazy, especially you taking trade as many times as you did. I don't think I've ever seen someone pull that off. And also, I have a lot of respect for people that play political stability in like the early to mid game, and being able to say like, I'm going to use this as an advantage at this point in the game, instead of, I think a lot of people bank it towards the end, and it is a very sabotageable card. So I really have a lot of respect for that play.
Yeah. The situation was I was going to be last pick, so I said, I'll keep trade rather than a last pick. So.
Right. How would you describe your semis game as far as like how it went and how you felt about it. I know you were playing a faction that wasn't necessarily your first pick or even that you prefer. You were playing as the Excha in your semis game.
Yeah, X-Job, or at least a lot of people say, is a very defensive faction, and I don't usually go the PDS route. I usually go like Dreadnought heavy kind of play. I like to just put a lot of ships on the board and be able to go out and grab planets if I need them, but also be able to defend at home. And getting the X-Jaw pick really threw me, and I honestly felt when that game started, I was like, oh man, I probably lost this because I never win as X-Jaw.
Right.
I never know how to really sell the quash and all that, but that flank speed draw off politics helped a lot. And a trade object, the spend 5 trade goods came up round 1, so I said, well, all right, I'm just going to shoot for that. I'm just going to keep score public and solidify my slice, get PDS down, make it seem too costly to attack me so that other people can fight amongst each other, and they'll just leave me alone.
Yeah, and I mean, you did get a first round trade pick off too, which is it's crazy. That,
we had a last round trade.
You were speaker. That's what it was. So
right.
You were speaker at that game, so you're able to get that. But yeah, that's I don't know. You have a lot of really good ideas about Twilight Imperium. I think me and Matt specifically of all the players, I feel like the show has the longest history with you. I was actually looking up like when you started giving us errata, which is interesting that the record as far as like keeping track of like how long have we been talking to some of these people is the big like you're wrong about this, and like that's it, like that's all we have to measure it. But I mean, you have been contributing to this show since at least like the 10th episode, maybe like the 9th episode even.
Yeah, I remember your BGG post, I think, when episode 2 was out. So
wow. Well, yeah, so I mean, of everyone that has gone into the finals, I think we have just seen your name for the longest. I think it's like basically you, or if Jim Bob had made it through, that Jim Bob has basically been talking to us since day one, since the first post. But I just want to say that I'm really excited to have you in the finals. I'm going to be really excited to watch your play. And this is all super great, and I just want to thank you for everything that you've kind of contributed to this show, and for playing in this. And I'm super excited. Awesome, me too. I can't wait. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Everybody, keep your eye on this guy because you kind of are you're quite infamous at this point within the tournament. And I feel like we have kind of stoked that fire a little bit. Yeah. I do kind of want to apologize for that because it does feel kind of it is a little bit put on at this point because it's Twilight Imperium, so like who knows what's going to happen basically. It's like what you were saying before, like there's a huge RNG factor to this game. Like a giant RNG factor, which kind of makes the whole idea of a tournament a little bit questionable. But it has been very fun, and at least I will say this to the credit of the RNG, I feel like we could have predicted that, you know, there were some people we had our eyes on as far as like this person will probably make it to the finals, and you were certainly one of those people, and you have made it. So that's one thing to say to the RNG right there. Yeah. There were definitely a lot of players. It's like, yeah, these guys are definitely going to get into the semis at least. They're going to get through their qualifier, and then when they were playing the game, I was just like, oh, I'll hear in 6 hours that, oh yeah, I won. Right. There's a lot of good players. I'm excited. Yeah, it's going to be super fun. Well, I think that'll do it. But thank you so much, dude, for talking with me today. This is awesome. So I really enjoyed that conversation with Magi, and just to kind of I feel like me and Magi actually talked for a lot longer than even that clip, just about all kinds of stuff. It was kind of fun to pick his brain. Yeah. But if we're talking about what does it look like if Unaligned Magi wins, well, what? It looks like every other day, right? No, just kidding.
Looks like Tuesday to me, boys.
If Magi wins, it just looks like a Tuesday. I feel like Magi's philosophy that he kind of laid out there a little bit is he didn't really put it this way, maybe because I feel like maybe he would... In describing his playstyle, I guarantee that he might have some clarifications for this. But how I would describe it is he wants to make sure he can win space risk first.
Right.
So we make sure that we have plastic advantage,
Yep.
economic advantage.
Right.
He wants to have more of all the things. He's tallied up all the things, and if he has more of them, then he should win.
Now, he knows that that's not where his win stops. He doesn't think he just wins by winning space risk.
Right,
but
of
he
course,
knows
of course.
he wins. Once he gets space risk out of the way, now he can move on to winning the game.
Right. If you can get the advantage, if you can get the leverage on the other players, then that should carry him through to the end of the game. Magi is also another player that we have not seen lose.
Right.
We have seen him win decisively in his prelims game as Necro, taking, and I mean, we did talk about it in the clip, but it still is crazy to me getting trade 4 times in a row.
4 times. Yep.
It was completely nuts. And then he also played as extra in the semis, which he was not too thrilled about.
Right.
To play extra, and I feel like the key with Magi is that getting this plastic advantage. And getting a currency advantage is something that some factions are better at and some factions are not as good at.
Right.
And so I feel like for a lot of these players, this is not just true of Magi. For a lot of these players, the draft is very important. I mean, we've already got, a couple players that I think are going to be eyeing a lot of the same factions and not only just factions, but strategy cards. And there's going to be a lot of competition for... there's not, regardless of how we might make it seem in this episode, there are not a million different styles of TI out there, and there are some predominant theories of what is good.
Right.
So I wonder how the draft will play out for Magi and how that will feed into his overall style. I think there are certain factions, I'm not necessarily going to name them, but I think there are certain factions that if Magi gets them, his percentage chance in the betting market of my brain to win the game goes up. Depending on what faction he gets stuck with. I mean, we have seen him in a situation where he got stuck with a faction that was not necessarily his style, and he did win.
Yes, but it should be noted, and this isn't to dog on Magi, he won in that game because Seven made a horrible mistake that cost him the win. Oh, well, Magi was not going to win that game.
Well, I mean, someone was going to win it before him. Essentially. So he was in the rafters, because I feel like we're also going to talk about that idea with another player coming up very soon of being kind of not necessarily the leader of the pack, but the person that's going to win if so-and-so loses.
Right. But my point being, though, in his case, it wasn't just that so-and-so lost. It's that so-and-so really, truly was supposed to win and then made a pretty big error.
There is a difference between another player
getting stopped
by the table, and then the player, and it was Seven.
Seven stopped himself.
Seven stopped himself with production biomes. And I don't know. I'm really excited to see how it plays out. I think Magi's approach, is really going to have a lot to do with just having higher numbers and all of these things. So I think him not winning is dependent on him not getting those advantages. If he doesn't find himself with the plastic leverage or the economic advantages.
And just knowing Magi from the Discord and how much kind of pressure he puts on himself of he really thinks through these things beforehand. We're not releasing the map beforehand. These players will be seeing the map for the very first time when the game starts.
Right.
Which is, as someone else has pointed out, I mean, that's how normal TI is. That's what TI is supposed to be.
So
like.
They're gonna play a regular game.
But for our tournament, it is different, and the draft feeds into that. You don't also normally have a draft when you do a normal build, so that these things build off of each other. And I think Magi is a little bit more dependent on the draft than other players because he really is hoping to be able to play his most efficient, and these things that throw him off guard, those could be disastrous. If he ends up in a slice that is not suitable to his play style, I don't know if Magi can completely go into a new strategy, right? I haven't seen him do that yet. I've seen Magi win when he's playing his game.
Sure.
And so I wonder if he has if he's in a faction he's not comfortable with and a slice he's not used to, is that too much? That's kind of my question to look out for.
I mean, I think my counter to you would be the extra game. I
Sure,
know
sure.
because it's not simply just that 7 messed up and then that's how
Sure.
Magi won. Magi did all the things right.
But the thing that's different though there is extra is also like defensive. I'm thinking of, I wonder how Magi does with ghosts or Mentak or something like that, where those don't feel like Magi's style much at all.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
see.
We'll see. Who do we have next, Matthew?
I sat down with Janor. All right, we got another player. I'm here with Janor. Janor, say hey.
Hey,
How is it going?
I'm pretty good.
Good. So we're today we're breaking down play styles and just trying to figure out. I'm trying to learn who's Janor. And something you pointed out to me before this is that you're in Chicago and you play in real life with fellow finalist Schroeder.
That's
right?
true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did you guys play TI3 together, or did you start with TI4? What's kind of your background compared to Schroeder's, I guess? I don't want to talk too much about Schroeder. I want to talk about you, but like what's your background with TI?
Schroeder played TI3. I started with TI4. I bought it because like I have a gaming group, like friends, and there was going to be one too many people there, so I needed a 6-player. Gotcha. And then we tried to play it, and it was like we spent 10 hours and got through like 3 rounds, and it was terrible. And none of them will ever play it with me again. But I thought it was pretty cool. And so I started actually listening to your guys' podcasts to kind of figure out how to do it. Went out online, joined the local Twilight Imperium group on Facebook, and that's how I met Schroeder. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, in trying to figure out like where all these different players are coming from, I think we have kind of a wide swath. Nine of Spades' background is as a poker player. Vaunt comes at things like really, really honestly, like brutally honestly.
Yes, he does.
Where do you find yourself on that spectrum of like honest do-gooder, I'm an honorable gent, versus all the way down to like I will, kill my firstborn to win a game of TI? Where do you fall in there?
So I believe a rising tide floats all boats. So I try and help everyone at the table to fight each other and ignore me.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically my goal. So I want everybody to be rich. I want everybody to have lots of resources. I want everybody in conflict. And then I just want to kind of sit in my little space, keep my slice, do my thing, and like build up and get my big hand of cards, get my techs where I want them, and then
pay no mind to the Janor on the other side of the curtain.
Right. And I'll hold back on points a little bit. Like I'll on purpose kind of stay towards the middle or back of the pack, and then in the last couple rounds I try and hit hard. So
I guess what are the things you're looking out for so that you can hit hard, right? Because I would say the number one argument against that strategy is like, how can you guarantee you're going to have a way to swing in the late game? So what are the things you're trying to collect throughout the game so that you have a better chance of hitting those swings?
So it's the same things everybody wants to collect, right?
Sure.
But action cards are big, right? Trade goods are big, of course. And then just like something I always do, and I start doing it really early, and you guys have noticed it, is that I build up on my home system, right? Because everybody will have an opportunity to get ahead at some point, but I want to be ahead and have it be so hard. I don't care about every other system. By the time people notice, because I'm usually behind up until near the end, by the time people notice I'm a problem, I don't care about the rest of the systems I have anymore. It's only the home system that needs to be defended. So you'll see me like put as much as I can there just to kind of keep people off. Yeah,
definitely. Well, and it helps that whole strategy of like I'm building you all up, and so as long as your home system is always defended, when you're putting your money into a neighbor, they're never going to look at you as a target anyways, because why would I attack their home system when I could go against the other neighbor's home system that isn't defended? So if you shore up good defenses, your boat isn't the one that can
right.
get sunk.
And this guy keeps making deals with me that help me to go do what I need to do over here. Yeah,
for sure.
Yep.
So you definitely prefer being not just strong factions, but you don't seem like a barony. You love the Jolnar Hakan path. You want the person who's got a lot to offer, not the one who swings hard.
Yeah,
themselves.
I also really, really dig the Yssaril. I haven't gotten to play them in the tournament, but I love them because they're so, I don't know, tricksy, and they usually have a lot they can do.
Right into your style. Yeah.
Would you like a sabotage? Because I have a sabotage. If you need it,
we can make this work.
Right. Yeah.
So let's do just a little bit of details on each of your games, just to kind of get a better idea of like where you're coming from. So you played Jolnar twice. Not only did you play Jolnar twice, but in a tournament where Jolnar was played, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 times. I don't have the exact numbers, but very, very few times did we ever see a Jolnar. So, and I know in the first game, you're the one who got them into there.
I don't know why they let me get them. They left them until near the end. Yeah.
So, were you planning to be Jolnar, or what was kind of the intent there? What's going on?
No, every one of these games. So I'm not afraid of playing powerful races. I'm not afraid of playing against powerful races. I don't care what I have. You know what I mean? Because you're really playing the people more than the board anyway. So if someone else is a bigger target, that's great for me. That's kind of the way I play. If someone else is a bigger target, that's great for me. So I was putting in these powerful races on purpose. Like, hey, yeah, let's put in Jolnar that first time. I forget who I put in the second time, but let's put the big ones in so that everyone else is focusing on them and not on me. But they left it way too late in the draft, and I think I got Jolnar and I got position, so I got like the best slice, and I got Jolnar.
Yeah, you were Slice of the Gaslight and Jolnar on the prelims map, which was, I remember that was like game 4, so it was still early in the tournament, and we were like, we thought this wasn't supposed to happen. Yeah, we were supposed to prevent this.
I don't know why they let me do that, to be honest. I mean, they were good players, but they really let me kind of get away with a lot there. And by the time it got there, I was like, well, I have to take them now. I mean, I can't. At this point, I don't want anybody else to have them if they're still available.
Right. So a big part of your strategy is building up other players. Then what went wrong in your semis game? You were a crucial element in the only elimination of the tournament. Did you just get too enticed by the idea of eliminating someone that you kind of abandoned, or did you see that same value in eliminating them? Did you think it would boost up somebody more than yourself and they would become the target? What was kind of the intent, or was it just like I really wanted to see it happen and had to see it through?
I really wanted to see it happen. It was exciting.
Of course.
It was exciting to see it happen.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it, and it was a huge mistake. It's not my strategy at all. It's not where I'm comfortable.
Right.
I mean, I ended up with, like, if you look at the slice, I ended up with, like, after Vaunt took all of mine. But if you look at the slice I ended up with, if you look at the planets I had mine. And then I had, so I had Jolnar, and I had like one other little planet there. And then I had Starpoint New Albion on the other side of the board. And then I had the Barony homeworld, as mine, which is great.
You didn't have a slice. You had like a peppering of great systems everywhere.
They were really good, but it was hard to kind of make a game out of that at that point. And it let Vaunt run away with everything. So I mean, you can see I was trying to help him, you know what I mean? But then I didn't expect him to come encroach on me so much.
Right. Yeah, he pushed further than maybe you anticipated. Yeah, and I think it goes to show comfort zones are a big deal, because of the 2 other games where you employed the strategy you're familiar with and the one you like, that's where you came out on top both times. I mean, it's not a non-starter to say, like, if someone kind of abandons their MO, just to see how it's going to work, well, it's not where you're comfortable. So getting back into the knockouts, your Hakan, was the Hakan choice certainly like nobody can give away stuff like Hakan can? I mean, who were like your primary targets for fueling their war machine?
So, all right. So with Hakan, there's a few things. One was I was sitting next to Seven, and I play with Seven on Tabletop Simulator really often. He's a great player.
Yeah.
He's
right.
He's more of he doesn't have the same play style I do. He's more aggressive, right? So it was important to make sure other people were threats, like right away, so that, and at the end of the game, he was the only one who could have stopped me too with where his fleets were. I mean, that guy's awesome. Props to Seven. Sorry, I know it's not about him, but he's a great player. He's fun to play with. But yeah, so he was sitting next to me, so I knew I was going to maybe have some issues there. We had Soul and Barony sitting next to each other, so I wanted to give them plenty to work with. And then I always try and make my neighbors happy to keep them out of my stuff. So That's all four of the other people that were at the table. So, but that Soul and Barony, especially like right in round one, they like went off into a secret conversation, which like put all of us on the table like, well, that's going to be a problem, So it was kind of easy to help people to want to attack them instead of like look at me. And I stayed at the back of the pack, until like the mid game, And like my big strategy was A, have Quantum Data Hub node, and B, move everyone else up the ladder until we got close to the end, and then just get ahead of them. Like I just had to be a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is having the stuff already in place and just always being present in the end game, right? It's kind of the Nalu approach almost. I don't know if you are a Nalu player.
I love the Nalu.
That is how I imagine a Nalu player to be, where it's like I just need to be in the running at all moments and have the route to the victory so that I've got a path to get there in the end, right?
Yeah, Nalu is another one of my favorite races to play, for sure.
Yeah, and I think the whole incident with 7 sort of goes to show why that is a valid strategy, and I think it's an interesting thought experiment sort of to figure out like how can we reevaluate what the end game looks like in TI. Like TI is if you want to be pretty good at it, you need to like play optimally the first 5 rounds.
Yeah.
If you want to be great at TI, you got to know exactly how to handle round 6 or if it feeds into round 7, that sort of situation, right?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you're the kind of player who really, really aims for that round 6 scenario where it's like, I'm going to find my way in to have the right stuff in the final round, but I won't fall behind before then.
Right. I'm not too far behind. I'm okay with being a point behind the pack or something. Like something I can make up with 1 Imperial round, I'm okay with.
Right.
But I don't want to be too far back. And I mean, usually I have a pocket, secret objective I've already scored that I just haven't played yet. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of sitting on that, waiting for the right round to play it.
For sure. Well, that's awesome. I think that's like about all we've got the time for. But I'm looking forward to see what kind of swings you can pull off in that final game. If you've got any, big, I want to hear your throwdown for Schroeder. Someone's got to represent Chicago in this final game.
That's right.
So let's hear it. What do you have to say against your arch nemesis?
I'm gonna have to take him out at the knees. That's I mean the guys beat me live every time we've played live. I think I might have gotten him on TTS once, maybe. He keeps spreadsheets. He could probably tell you better than me. But this time I'm going to get him, because otherwise I'm going to hear about it for like the next 2 years.
Janor, thanks so much for coming on the show today, and we can't wait to see you in the finals, man. The rising tide sinks all ships. That is like Janor's whole MO. That's everything he cares about. That's like his number one strategy, almost to a fault, I would say, right? Because the way Janor wins, he played as Jolnar in his first game, and he played as Hakan in his knockouts game, and both of those games are very much defined by, sure, he was this great faction with this great tool set, but he beefed up somebody else so much that they were the target. And he, or more importantly, like in his Hakan game, multiple people were just still ahead of him, and then he had Quantum Data Hub node, which is this great, amazing tech, and yeah, you come out on top when everybody's even, and you have Quantum Data Hub node. So, and Hunter, you thought of this little analogy.
Well,
recently we talked about the white hat, black hat, brown hat kind of logic puzzle.
Right.
And without breaking the whole thing down, being like, black hat is what? Like the best player and usually wins. But as soon as you introduce a brown hat element, it throws all these things off. So tell me about why Janor is a brown hat.
Well, it's not that... It's based on your description of the interview and all that I've seen of Janor playing. It sounds like what he's trying to do is he's going to show up to the gunfight with the brown hat already on.
Yes.
And like he's wearing it. Like he picked it up specifically.
Hi guys, I'm the brown hat.
Hello, I am the brown hat. And then he's going to specifically try and engineer a situation where he is going to brown hat win. That sounds like the goal, which is, I think, compared to maybe some of the other players we've talked about thus far, a little bit headier than
it's headier. It's also way riskier, right?
Right.
So the Janor's victory, the way it looks is somebody else looks like they're definitely going to win, and we, the commentators, have completely counted Janor out, but then the whole board jumps on them enough because they're just such a big target, and then Janor is there on the other side of it being like, see, you all committed too many resources to deal with the problem that I caused.
Right.
And now I win because I was, his mentality is, I will gain from their growth and you will all deal with their growth. So they'll get knocked down a peg and you will expend resources to knock them down a peg. And I will have spent nothing and only gained from the end result.
Right.
So his win looks like somebody else is going to win. And then nope. They got crushed, and here's Janor ready to win it pretty decisively.
Well, now, then I guess we would say the flip side of that is pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious. I would say the most obvious, which is like he gave way too much to one player, and they never got put in check, and they just win. If we have a finals game where there is a runaway victor, it will be because of Janor. That's my prediction. I don't see any other situation where the finals is a runaway victory because I think these players are so tightly matched. I keep saying this. I think we're going to have all players at 9, and it's going to be like this horrible, disastrous final round where it's like crazy things happen, like support for the throne crazy things. I think our last round will look like that. But the one thing that stops that is Janor just like paying somebody off so much that they completely run away with it.
Yeah. Well, just to put it in the context of what we've seen in the tournament thus far, what do we mean with this in the games that people have watched? In his prelims game, he kind of fettered research agreement like it was
like just
worth
nothing.
Very little.
Well,
like
yeah. I mean,
worth whatever you had.
I don't remember like what his actual deals are, but I know that he's the kind of person who would give up research agreement for like 2 trade goods. Right, which for most people will be like 2 trade goods, you can get so much more. I mean, it's the tech is worth $4, whatever. Like research agreement can get so much more, but he'd be like, 1 or 2 trade goods, whatever you got. I don't care. I want you to have it.
Right. See, I get that.
He's like one step away from giving stuff away for free.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like because the thing is, your promissory notes they're not useful to you. So if you're not trading them, then they're not worth anything. Well, cool. I love this. So are we ready to move on to our next contestant? Our next contestant on Who Wants to Be a Space Cat Peace Turtle is Schroeder.
You just gave away the prize. They become the third
host.
Oh,
right. Yeah.
Hunter.
Well, actually, they don't become the third host. They're going to replace me because I quit.
Oh, no.
You have to do this with somebody else. No, actually, it would be scarier if they replaced you because it would be like, oh, no, do you know how to edit? And if they don't... Anyways, Schroeder. It's Schroeder time. Schroeder, what can you tell us a little bit about John first? Let's get to know John, and then let's get to know the Schroed. What is your background? What do you do, John?
Yeah, all right. So I am an actuary. So I am in the Chicago area, and I am an actuary. So actuaries do a variety of things. So anywhere from figuring out when you're going to die to figuring out why you should pay more or less for insurance, or just, figuring out how much insurance companies should save to pay for all their claims. I happen to fall into that third category of actuary, so I don't technically figure out when you're going to die, but I know when you're going to die.
Right. He could figure out, he's a kind of death clock human in the form of a human being.
Yes.
Well, that's great. And John, how do you feel? Do you feel like, what do you feel like is your style of Twilight Imperium? Like all these players are bringing such a distinct style to it. What is the Schroed school of Twilight Imperium?
Work with people. So in my personal opinion, it's true that everyone is, your competition, but I feel like the best way to get ahead in Twilight Imperium is to make more deals than anyone else, because if you make a deal with another person and you both gain 1 benefit, and then make a deal with another person and you both gain 1 benefit, and you do that more than anyone else, you're going to come out ahead. And so that's what I always try to do.
Right. Yeah, and I would say in watching your games that you out of every player you consistently make the most deals, and I would say they're not disrespectful deals.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're always very, if they're in your favor, there's either a very obvious reason why it would be in your favor, like for example, you're the one holding the trade strategy card or whatever. Or if there's something you're throwing out to somebody else, I just feel like you always have a really either fair price, or if it's unfair, it's just slightly. You never make a deal that's like, ugh, that's how dare you even propose that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the reason why I tried to do that is I do strongly feel like that can translate into the meta. Like if you're making a lot of fair deals with people, people are going to want to work with you more, I think.
Right. And I feel like you have a very good understanding of leverage, like when you can make certain types of deals with people. Let's go ahead and talk about, so in your prelims game, I would say you were prelims game number 10.
Yep.
I would say out of the prelims, it's one of the more interesting ones to watch. I'll definitely go on record in saying that. Can you tell me a little bit about, there's a deal that you made late in that game that you had to go back on.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little about that situation?
Yes. So this is my infamous deal with the Arborec, where I promised to give them my Spynet card so that they could take political stability from me and keep Imperial. And then I additionally promised them that because I had the remaining 3 sabotages, I would not sabotage their play of Imperial. Yes. And so in this deal, I was desperate for trade goods, because I was in a relatively high influence slice, and I needed to do the primary of technology, and so I really wanted a bunch of money.
Right.
And so ultimately, a lot of people felt like this was a pretty king-makey deal, which is ultimately why I went back on it. But I thought at the time that it was going to be completely fine. I thought that they were going to either lose or not be able to keep their home system, or lose Mechatol Rex. And so going into the deal, I thought, it's fine that I'm doing this.
Right, because it's not going to matter,
because
they're not going to be in a position to win next round anyways.
Yeah.
But then that was not the case, and then so you did have to kind of infamously now sabotage the political stability.
One thing that would have been really fun and funny is if after I gave them that, if I had sold a sabotage to someone else and had them do it.
Oh, wow, yeah, because then you could just be like, because it's for the game, so they would have to do it. Like, they would have no choice. It would be a kickback situation for them.
Yeah. That would have been a funny way.
You did reveal to everybody that you had all 3, so they would know that you had some.
Yeah.
So it would kind of be an even situation. Yeah. But I will say this. I feel like in the show lately, we have kind of given you a bit of a reputation for breaking deals.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of use this opportunity to kind of clear that up. I feel like you just make more deals than probably anybody in the tournament. Definitely anybody in the finals. You are the deal. You make lots of deals constantly. And that's the style of player you are. And, we're talking about this one deal that you didn't break, but what about all the deals that you kept? Which is all of the rest of them, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
So I just kind of wanted to be fair and just say that, even though it's just what it comes down to is the deals that make the best stories are the ones that you break.
Yeah. And I think that Matt has said a couple times that he sees a little bit of himself in me.
For sure.
He makes a ton of deals, but I will say, I do feel like I try to keep my deals more than Matt might.
Yeah. Also, Matt, the thing that you do really good that I think Matt could learn from is keeping the deals reasonable. Matt always at least makes 1 or 2 heinous deals. And when you do that, you kind of lose a little bit of standing in the meta. I really like what you're saying of I just make a lot of fair deals, so people want to deal with me.
Yeah.
Another thing I feel like you do is there's a lot of clarity in your deals. You generally already know what you want, what it's worth. You have a reasonable price for it. I don't know. Like you keep all of that stuff really clear. And yeah, it's been really fun and exciting to kind of rewatch your games and take a lot of notes on you as a player.
Thanks, man.
I'm curious though, who are you looking at in the finals as far as like someone you might be threatened by or someone you're trying to figure out how you would how you're going to play off against them?
Magi. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Me too.
Magi. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I got all my gear on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you feel like about Magi makes him makes that?
So, for one thing, I always feel like it's hard to get a read on Magi. So
right. He doesn't talk as much. You talk a lot. Magi doesn't talk so much.
Yeah. And so one thing I try to do is talk with players a lot and give them information of mine, and then oftentimes they'll give me information in return. And I feel like, that helps me make better informed plays. I feel like that's tougher to do with Magi. And then, in addition, just because of the fact that it's hard to get a read on him and stuff, it makes me worried to make deals with him. And making deals is my entire thing. So, not only is he a great player, but I feel like his style almost plays against me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Players that tend to talk less are not going to really come into the meta of a player that likes to talk a lot. I do feel like you both have something in common. Me and Matt were actually doing this thing where we were trying to put every player on the D&D alignment thing, which was kind of stupid. But
well, you guys were also going to put us all into Dragon Ball Z characters, so.
Oh yeah, no, we should. That actually would be. That's actually more fun because there's more options there. But I think you and Magi of the things that you two have in common, I feel like, is you both understand leverage a lot.
Yeah.
In that, we have a very good example of a deal that you went back on because you didn't you made the deal understanding I have the advantage here.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and make this deal, and then if it doesn't work out, then I don't have to hold to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like an understanding leverage kind of thing, which is very, I feel like, similar to Magi's. I will make a deal with you, but I understand the timing window of what makes it binding or not binding, and then I'll hold back on it. So I feel like you both kind of understand that.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a difference of you are kind of always working that meta, whereas Magi, I feel like if Magi's talking to you, it's bad because he probably has leverage over you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he's making a deal with you, it's because he's already decided that he's got the better end of it, basically.
Whereas if I'm making a deal with you, it's because I think that we could both benefit, I guess.
Right.
Or maybe I have leverage. Or maybe I have leverage.
Exactly. So yeah, I would say that you guys have that in common.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited for the game. Obviously, are there any other I hear that you and Janor have some history together. You guys play together in real life, correct?
Yes, we do. So in Chicago, we have a Twilight Imperium Facebook group that organizes some games, and I have not yet lost to Janor.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So we're not scared of Janor, basically.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, it was super fun talking to you, and I'm really excited about the game. It'll be cool to see you there.
All right, yeah. Thanks, Hunter. Looking forward to it.
So my kind of takeaway of Schroeder's style, and I feel like we have done him a bit of a disservice in the show.
Yeah.
Is that it's going to sound like I'm doubling down on that disservice right away, but listen to me for a second. He's like a used car salesman. In that, 9 times out of 10, he's going to sell you a good car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's probably even
his
a good
reputation
deal.
is on the line. He's not going to be able to maintain his business.
Right.
He's got to sell good cars and make good, he's got to get good Google reviews.
Right. And yeah, see, and that's the thing. The stereotype of the used car salesman is no one can survive just always selling nasty, awful cars. I mean, actually, people can, but for the sake of argument, let's assume that they can't. Let's assume the market does actually punish bad behavior. So 9 times out of 10, I'm just going to tell you, Schroeder's going to sell you a good car.
Right.
But when he sells you the bad car, it's going to look the same from the outside. You know what I mean? like his pitch, it's gonna sound exactly like all the times it was good,
right?
Because I think Schroeder is he loves the deal. He's a man of the deal. Of all of these players, so they're all kind of across the board as far as how prone they are to deal making.
He read the president's book cover to cover.
Right. Well, I don't even know what that means, but what do you mean by that, actually?
The president's book?
What's the president's book?
Donald Trump wrote a book called The Art of the Deal.
Oh, The Art of the Deal.
Write it, though.
Right.
It's okay.
Okay. Well,
we got past it. We made it here.
Schroeder is not the Trump of this group. He is a used car salesman, not the president. Okay. He's
the president, as we've clearly determined.
Right. But I would predict that you're going to see lots. I mean, he loves to make deals, and a lot of the deals are they're mostly good deals. They're mostly deals that I would think you would be kind of foolish not to take them up on them. If the needle in a Schroeder deal leans towards Schroeder, it's only by a little bit, and it's almost never insulting.
Right.
However, one thing I think is interesting about Schroeder is he does, I think, deal make well into the late game, which is something I think a lot of people kind of don't do, or like the deal making kind of slows down.
Well, here's what people do. What I've found, and maybe not even speaking of any of our other players, but just players we saw in the semifinals and prelims, a lot of people get into that late game and they go, I feel like I'm king making, I got to walk away.
Right.
Whereas Schroeder sees that as an opportunity for more deal making.
Right. And I would be surprised if we did not see a late game, very odd Schroeder deal. He has made odd deals in the past, and I expect there to be some very strange deals. It especially in that late game, and I think the kind of folly of all this, obviously, if people are kind of stonewalling, if they're not, which honestly, when it comes to deal making in Twilight Imperium, if somebody's got a good deal, you gotta say yes. I mean, you can't say no. But so I think there might be an issue with that. I also feel like there could be a situation where Schroeder makes a deal that he believes is going to pay off correctly, even if it's a pretty wild deal, and then he might accidentally make a deal to cause someone else to win. He did actually commit to a deal in his prelims game that would have given someone else the win. He had no intention of fulfilling it, but it did come up as a possibility. And you know what I mean? I'm saying that Schroeder as a deal maker has the imagination to possibly accidentally give someone else the win with a deal. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Well, and it shouldn't be taken away that he won his other two games as Asarl and Sardak Nor.
Right.
You had a point about his version of leverage that is kind of important to his play and also kind of to Magi's play, and we didn't talk about it with Magi either, but his, what is it, inherent leverage, or what was you had a term?
I feel like we were talking about Schroeder's got a pretty weird set of factions that he won with, Asarl and Sardak Nor. And I know people are like, Asarl's a great faction. They did not perform well in the tournament. Okay, outside of
very badly in the tournament.
Actually. Right, Schroeder did well with them, but we saw lots of a lot of crashing and burning with Asarl. Yeah. So what I'm going to say is, and Sardak Nor is not traditionally a faction you think of when it comes to deal making. What I'm saying is that Schroeder is I think he could probably find the deal leverage with basically any faction in the game because he is that into it.
Right, and he milks it for all it's worth. In his Sardak game example, he sold Teklar Legion just a million times.
Right. He'll get that out there. I mean, I guarantee you, whatever faction it is that Schroeder's playing, he knows what they can push around the table, and he will push that a lot. Yeah. And for whatever the actual price of that thing is, too. He's not. He can't make anything up, but he does prioritize that. So I feel like we'll probably see a lot of interesting deal making, and we'll see if it pays off. Let's see if he can deal to the win.
See if he can.
He's already done it twice. He's also it's fair to mention Schroeder is another player that we have not seen lose yet. Yeah, we have not seen him lose either. Yeah. So,
well, let's check out our fifth player, Mage.
Yeah.
All right, I'm now joined by our, I don't know what this order is going to be. I'm going to call him the fourth finalist. It's probably like the fifth finalist you're hearing from, but this is Mage. Mage, say hey.
Hi, guys. Hello.
How's a boot? I want to start to get a framework for what your approach to the game is, and I think you've been one of the harder players to get a grasp on if there's anything crazy going on, and I think because of that, we've realized that there isn't anything crazy going on, and so we've kind of nailed down all these things about each specific player. But I think, Mate, you might be the Larry Bird of TI, and it's just all about fundamentals with you. So how long have you been playing TI, whether it's TI4, TI3, anything like that?
Well, let's see. I played my first game of TI3 maybe like 8 years ago, and I just thought it was cool that you could build Death Stars, really. And I played that like that was really my strategy. I was like, I'm going to get these big ones, and then I'm going to make a lot of Star Wars quotes. And then, so that was like 8 years ago. It's hard to find a group to play. So I picked it up again maybe 2 years ago, TI3. This was like right before TI4 came out. And I found enough folks that I thought would be willing to play. So we played, I got TI3, we unpacked it, made a bunch of mistakes for a couple of games, played it for a little while. And then, it was fun. And then TI4 came out, and my future wife bought me that for a birthday present, and we switched over to that.
Awesome.
So that was like right around when the game came out. And it was better, and it was more streamlined. It was a lot easier for newbies, especially with like the way the boards were designed and stuff. And so we've been playing since then, maybe about once a month the first year, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it's important to note that you are you're based out of Australia right now, which means for the tournament's sake, it's been very hard to schedule you. And so you had, I believe it was your semis game was like incredibly terrible for you. You
that was
wake
brutal.
What time did you have to wake up for that semis game?
Well, it started at 4 a.m. So, to be honest, I was actually up much earlier because, when you have like a really early thing the next day, it's like same thing as like an airline flight. Like you just, I just like woke up. I was like, oh no, is it time? Am I there?
Right,
so
right.
I woke up at maybe 2 a.m. and then just pounded a bunch of caffeine.
Gosh.
And I think I overdid it on the caffeine too, because I was both like tired and really jittery. And then, as the game drags on for like 8 hours, it just, I was wrecked for like days afterwards. I was like trying to get my sleep back.
I think you had it worse than just about any other players. We had a couple European players that I know had to play pretty late into their evening, but nobody, I don't think, had to wake up at such like a terrible, disastrous hour as you did. So apologies on this being an American-focused tournament, but you're the only non-American in the finals, even though you are technically an American. Yeah. So that's fun.
Yeah, right. Last year it would have been a lot easier, but it's fine. Right. Like there are worse things to wake up for than a fun board game.
Yeah. So Mage, your first game was defined by just a slow crawl to victory. I think even in the commentary, I kept being like, "Oh, L1 could win this round. It's round 4 or something." I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be great for him." And then you took it slow. And round 5, it's like, "Okay, well L1 could definitely win this round," and you still took it slow. And then you still come out with a win in round 6. And your knockout game was defined almost by the same thing of like, you're getting your points, but you also took out a home system in what, round 2 or 3?
I think it was 3.
No, round 4. Yep, beginning of round 4 is what I've got.
I tried
so
it in the
took out a home system
round.
and then later took out a second home system. But walk me through the first home system grab, because I think that's a pretty important one to kind of get at what kind of player you are.
Sure. Yeah. So I think I actually made a play for it. So Mantis was who's the Nalu right next to me on the right, was he made a few plays to try to use the gravity rift right in front of him to I think take Mechatol Rex or just expand, and it didn't go so well for him. And then I thought, well, he's left his home system pretty open. I think the round before I attempted to bring a Dreadnought and a Carrier in there through the gravity rift as well to try to take his home system, and it didn't work. The rift ate my Dreadnought, and then his PDS and fighters just took out the rest. So that was the first attempt. And the next round, through that agenda phase, I think Mantis did succeed in taking Mechatol Rex, despite being spread thin. So through that agenda, I was able to take Minister of War.
Right, that's right.
That was really helpful. Normally, I think folks probably save that to the end of the game to, like, do a big play for some major objectives.
Sure.
But instead, I decided. Well, so I'd played with Mantis before in the semifinals, I think, and he was quite good, and I was quite worried about that. And also, he had 2 PDS in his home system, and I needed 4 for a secret. And as the Lizzix, I could just go in and take them. So I thought it was reasonably, it made a lot of sense. It was a pretty efficient move to try to take his system again. I had a bunch of dreadnoughts in the area, and I also have Minister of War, and I think there were super dreadnoughts, so they can move too. So it made sense to just, take the system right next to him, which just had 1 fighter, and then go on straight in and take his home system. And he didn't have enough to stop, like, the 2 or 3, I think it was
That
3
much
dreadnoughts.
stuff.
Yeah, it was great.
It was a lot.
I'd actually, in my mind, I was actually thinking, and I can just bombard him to dust. But of course, he has PDSs, so I only was able to take 1 out of the 2 home systems, home planets. But.
So you see Mantis is strong. You want to take care of him, and you get something out of it. I mean, it was a pretty tactical precision strike, good timing for it, and everything. And I think in general, what that goes to show is just like we said, you're Larry Bird because you've got the fundamentals down. I mean, like I said, in your prelims game, you had 3 rounds in a row where you probably could have won it. And each round you took kind of the safer route just so that you wouldn't lose your chance, right? Because if any of those first 2 rounds you had launched yourself out at some sort of win, that probably would have shot all of your chances if it fails. So you always are just like, nope, I got to stick to the plan, stick to what's safe, and stay up in the pack, which you always are. I feel like you are always tied for the lead, in the lead, or like 1 point behind, but you're always there in the running. So at the end of the game, it's like Mage is always an option for the win. And I noticed in Knockout Game 3, which you were a part of, it was very, very few deal making. Is that customary for you, or is that kind of a tabletop simulator thing for you, being kind of just a quiet precision strike, get the points where I need them sort of player?
Well, I do tend to lean towards the just, quiet, focused. If I see a deal that I need, like I really need to accomplish something, I will, but it's not my normal play style. Like, if you also notice, I actually, in the knockout game, I banned Mentak, and if I can, I'll also ban Hakan.
Right.
Just because
you got to get that stuff out of your way, right?
Yeah, it's a lot harder, especially in a real life game. It makes the game take like 3 hours longer, and in a tabletop simulator, it's just a lot harder to get a sense of. Part of the reason why I'm playing so carefully, right, rather than going for like a big win in an earlier round, is I don't know the other players. I can't read them, and I don't know what they're going to do, and I don't know how quickly they'll jump on me if I jump ahead. So I think, when I don't know, in an uncertain environment, just play it safe seems to make the most sense. So yeah, like definitely. I'll only deal if I really need to, and then when I do, I'll try to make sure it's a very straightforward deal. Even if it's non-binding, I'll always keep it. At least I have, I think, in this tournament.
Yeah, I think you have. And to all that end too. So you're not out there making crazy deals and trying to like ransack people for all they're worth. But it's not like you don't talk, and if anything, I would say you're kind of probably one of the like nicest, most jovial people at the table. I kind of feel like you're the fan of the people just because you're there to have like the funnest. You even though this is a tournament, there's still a part of you that can't escape the like, I want to have a fun game, and I want to have a good time, and I want to be able to get along with these guys. I'm not looking to make any enemies, even if it's across the internet. I don't what's funny is I say that, but you took out 2 home systems. But you taking the Soul home system was certainly not this crazy tactical advantage. It was a little bit of a different case, would you say?
Oh yeah, no, the Mantis, I think, had a good tactical reason. The Soul system, I guess I did take another player out of the scoring running, and in a 5-player game, that's kind of cool that there's
deal.
now. Yeah, there's only 2 players left, but I don't think it was the best action. But I do think it was the most fun I could have had at that moment. And, like, just trying to take, as Lizzix especially, right? Taking 2 out of the 5, like having 3 home systems under your control out of 5 is kind of fun. So I had an option. I had a flank speed. I could jump over there. It was open, and it was just too fun not to try.
Yeah. Well, Mage, you're the people's choice. I can't wait to see what you guys all pull off, and I can't wait to see, what optimal plays you get, and if the people's choice, if the person out there still having fun is able to get a win in the whole tournament. So I wish you luck, and thanks for joining us on the show today. I alluded to it in the interview. I see Mage as this player who I think he plays every element of the game. I think, like we just talked about, Schroeder puts a lot of value into the deal-making side of it. And Unaligned Magi puts a lot of pressure on the plastic side of it. I think Magi is maybe our most well-rounded.
Mage.
Did I say Magi?
You said
that's
Magi.
been screwing me up for like literally 2 weeks.
Right.
Anyways, but yeah, I think Mage really just plays everything that he can in the game. But the key for him is he takes the rule of you should score 1 victory point every round. He takes that pretty seriously. He sees that as his like avenue to definitely always stay in the running. And so for him, he'll push himself very, very far to do that. He wants to always be climbing up the leaderboard. He doesn't try to do any of these weird manipulative plays where it's like, oh, I'll stay behind a bunch and then swing. You know, he stays in the pack and is always there, and he always needs to be scoring. And what we see from him is that can leave him fairly thin. And so when it works, he pushed himself as far as he needed to go, and he got all the points he needed to do, and he kept his flanks secured, and he made deals when he needed to. He's not doing things on just honor. He's making good, solid deals that pay off, and that leaves him in the late game in like an unstoppable position of like, oh, he has too many points and too much stuff. He's spread out, but he actually then managed to fill in that spreadness. Like, that's how his wins look like.
Yeah, we have seen him gain an advantage and then push it. Mm-hmm. And to the extent where, I mean, we have commented games that Mage has won, and we have at times felt that he was pushing his advantage too far.
Right, yeah.
To where
we were
it was
afraid
about
he was going to risk it. Yeah.
Right. To where it was maybe going to bite him in the butt. And I think that's what his loss will look like. If he loses, it's going to be because he gained an advantage, pushed too far, and then what do? You know, if you overextend yourself, there's so many. Honestly, and we didn't talk about this before, but he actually kind of playstyle. He kind of reminds me of you a little bit, Matt.
Oh yeah,
actually.
absolutely. No, absolutely. Like, it's that same mentality of like, if I'm not scoring a point, what am I doing? Like I just feel myself falling behind.
Right.
So I have to do something. I got to push myself further to make sure I'm not losing my traction.
Right.
And that causes sometimes that's the right choice to make, and you stick with it, and you end up in the lead. Sometimes you get ahead of yourself, and you just start making crazy plays because you think you got to do something, and it's a complete horrible Hail Mary pass that doesn't work at all, and you're left completely floundering. I mean, you're just done. That's happened to me many times.
Right. Yeah, I think I think you two, that actually feels so correct to me right now. I think you guys both have this. There's this moment that we saw in the knockout game that he won, where he had taken a home system, his neighbor's home system, and then he took his neighbor's home system. Yeah, and we were like, "What is happening?"
Yep.
And I feel like it really reminded me of, there have been times when I have watched you play, or I've been in a game with you, and you'll have pushed an advantage, and it will have paid off, and then you'll do something and be like, Matt is being really audacious today. And I'll be like, this is, whoa, okay. Yeah. And I'll just kind of look around and be like, this is pretty wild.
Right. Yeah, and to give Mage more credit, and the reason Mage is better than me and deserves me in this finals is because then when things do crash and burn for me, I become a big old baby and I start throwing a hissy fit, whereas Mage is like always having a good time and always like the center of the table of like just keeping things jovial and nice. And I honestly think he wins a couple allies every game because he's just like, hey, we're having some fun here today, man, and let's just keep this going. And like,
he's got a good tude.
He's got a good tude, and that literally does earn him some favor in games. I've seen people just more willing to let... It's not that people will like make extra good deals for him because he's being a nice guy, but they'll let him do crazy stuff, like go and take Soul's system when it doesn't maybe distinctly... Like, people could have really hurt him for doing that, but because what he was doing was so crazy and fun for the table, they were kind of like, I want to see where this goes. I'm willing to let him kind of play this out. And then he makes an advantage out of it.
Yeah. That's exciting. Let's well, we've only got one more. Wow.
We're almost done.
Wow, I actually just kind of realized that and was like, bummer.
I know. This is like basically outside of the game itself, this is the last thing we're gonna have to say about. That's not true. We're gonna do like a wrap up episode. We'll be talking about this tournament for 6 more months. I'm sure.
Yeah, I also feel like you might be hearing from a lot of these people again.
Yeah,
even possibly even in. I mean, one of them I feel like you'll definitely be hearing from soon. Okay.
Right. One of them is going to win this game, and we're gonna want to talk to them about it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna want to talk to them about it.
All right. Well, let's jump into 9 of Spades interview.
Yep.
Okay, I've got 9 of Spades here. 9, say hi. How's it going?
Greetings, travelers.
We're gonna break down a little bit of your gameplay, 9. I kind of want to get to the center of who is the 9 of Spades, and so the most important question is why 9 of Spades? Why is that the name? That's important.
Actually, a number of years ago, I played poker semi-professionally, and the 9 of Spades just happened to be like a really lucky card for me. So
that is such a better answer than I was.
Yeah, around the same time is when I started gaming pretty heavily, and I needed a gamer tag. So online poker, it was the 9 of Spades. Most of the games that I play, it's the 9 of Spades. You know, Steam name, stuff like that. Wow. So yeah.
Did you have any significant wins under your belt as a poker player? I mean, was there any...
I played in a World Series event once, and I cashed. I didn't win or anything, but it was the only World Series event that I played in, and I cashed in that, so that was pretty big. And then I won a couple pretty significant tournaments at home. But for the most part, it was just cash games, spending 5 or 6 days a week in the casino, sitting on my butt, not doing anything but poker.
Right, yeah. I keep up with poker very lightly, but yeah, it's always interesting to hear about professionals when they're in their like semi-pro days of just like, no, you just sit in the casino for hours and days and just hope you come out ahead of, exactly. You go down on day 2, but day 3 and 4 you pick it back up or whatever, just that sounds like quite the life. Well, that obviously lends itself pretty well to Twilight Imperium. So I'm curious how you think, what would you say you take away the most from your poker experience and apply to TI? And then on the flip side of that, what do you think differentiates Twilight Imperium? What did you have to like learn about TI that you couldn't pull from your poker experience in?
It's funny because in poker, such a huge part is knowing when to bluff and know when other people are bluffing, and I don't think I've ever made a significant bluff in TI. Like it's not a directly transferable skill that I've needed to apply yet, but I think one of the biggest skills that is transferable is thinking about possibilities. And when you're going through the secret objectives and you're trying to nail down what one that person has, it's the exact same as thinking like, okay, why did this guy bet on the turn?
Right.
What could he possibly have had, right? It's the same thing. It's why would this guy have built a 4th PDS when he could have saved that command token for action cards instead? Like,
what's the cliche of poker? You're always playing your opponent's hands more than you're playing your own hand. You have to suss out what they're doing more than you just need to have developed your own plan or whatever. You got to be always up against. I love that too, because what it also showcases is, so many people like to apply game theory analyses to Twilight Imperium, and I feel like a lot of those things break down in the same way that a lot of perfect game theory can get funky in poker because of like how big your tables can be and like always having to plan for just all these things. Like, they obviously game theory still applies in poker, but the fact that you are kind of having to like how much, let's talk about the prelims game for this point, I guess I'm trying to make, is how much of the prelims game are you sussing out the quality of like the skill of the other players versus how much you're just like in your own plan trying to make sure everything you can do? Like how much do you feel like in your prelims game did you need to account for how good your opponents were, or was that a consideration?
And it's not just the prelims game. It's pretty much every Twilight game. Like, you're trying to weigh how well does this guy know what he's doing? Is he going to be the guy that realizes I'm going for ships in 6 systems, or is it going to be his neighbor, or is he going to be the one to point out to someone, oh, he's got to lose some ground forces here next turn, so let's think ahead. And it's in Twilight, it's a lot like poker. It's the guys that talk the most that are going to do the most damage.
Right.
And a lot of the times, it's not the best player, it's the biggest wild card. It's the guys that aren't going to make the ultimate play or the optimal plays. In poker, you can read a guy and he does exactly what you need him to do to put him on a hand, and it turns out he wasn't doing anything that you thought he was. Right. And it's the exact same in Twilight Imperium. Like, some people just throw in chaos, right?
Right.
And they'll attack a home system not because it gets them a point, but because it's fun. I mean, who doesn't like taking a home system?
So how do you, as a player, defend against that? I mean, what do you feel like you are supposed to do in TI when you do have that wild card and you're just trying to? I mean, obviously in poker there are ways around it of like, well, I have multiple hands, right? I can get them on the next hand. I can figure out something later. When I get a good hand, I can really just ruin their whole day. But in TI, it's harder to get that kind of like immediate turnaround, right? If you get hit hard, that might be the end for you. So how do you, what do you do if you are up against a wild card? What's kind of your plan?
I think a big aspect of my TI game is trying to play a social game, and I don't want to attack someone and take their system or go back on a deal unless I absolutely have to, unless that's going to get me a point. If it's just getting me a few extra resources and influence, then I don't want to piss someone off, because they might be that wild card that just does something that I'm not anticipating. So trying to build relationships with neighbors or people through wormholes or pretty much anybody that can do damage to you is a huge part of my game, I think.
Yeah.
And then the other part is just always be focusing on objectives. You have to be aware of what objective you're scoring this round and what objective you're scoring next round, and who can stop you from doing that, and who can help you to do that. Who can you help to do that so you can maybe trade? I mean, there's so many different things to consider.
So kind of on that same standpoint of like bluffing, right? You talk about like you don't really break deals in TI, but in poker it's different, right? You're not bluffing, you're not breaking a deal in poker. In poker you're misrepresenting what you actually have. So do you think that is something that you apply a lot in TI, or do you? We certainly see players that have done that. Would you categorize yourself as someone who like, okay, I have the secret objective to have ships in 6 systems, but I'm going to make it look like I have this objective. Do you think that's something you employ?
Yeah, maybe in situations like that where I'm trying to throw people off my scent, I might say like, oh, he could have ships in 6 systems, when really I'm holding that card. So
we saw
it's not possible he could have
it. Right. We definitely saw that in your knockout game. I do want to talk too then about that knockout game. You were Muat, and against all odds, you won as Muat. I don't think that's something any of us, viewers and Hunter and I and Root included, like, I don't think any of us saw that coming in a semis or knockout round of having a huge Muat success like that. So I'm curious from your perspective, what do you think goes into that?
I didn't really think I was going to pull out that win. I remember messaging a friend of mine that I play Twilight with in real life right after the draft, and I was like, you wouldn't believe this. I got stuck with a choice between Muat and Winu. My game's over.
Right. Yeah. So what do you do? How do you turn that around? I mean, because obviously in the finals, that is still a possibility. You could there could be a trolley draft. What do you think turned it around for you? And you're not allowed to just say like the bad luck of other players, because we know from seeing the game that's definitely you worked your butt off in that game. So as soon as you have already kind of said, "Oh, I'm Muat, I don't know what I'm gonna do," how did you change your mentality going forward to turn it into a win?
There was I got pretty lucky. About a week before the knockouts, I played a game on the knockout map where another player was Muat, and I got to see the strength of Muat on that map. And on a 5-player map with the hyperlane in place, it's quite a bit smaller than a 6-player map. Lanes are condensed, wormholes connect the map a little closer, and I knew the one strength that Muat has is 3 movement War Suns.
Yeah, and I love that too, because we've talked about that on the show, and we're proponents of the gravity drive, but I think what you get at is something really, really important, which is it depends on the map. It always depends on the map, and yeah, I think that's a really good call to say, hey, this map, a 3 movement War Sun is actually going to be very close to many people.
Yeah, and I made that decision right at the start. I talked to Barony. I knew I wanted Mir for the red skip because I was going down red and I was getting the War Suns. And then the other thing I did was a lot of people Starforge fighters, and I made an early decision to solely Starforge destroyers. And that ultimately won me the game, more indirectly, but having ships in 6 systems, 3 of my systems had destroyers in them as the ship that was holding that system. And if it was fighters, I wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah, and certainly if you're going down that red path anyways for Prototype War Sun 2, it's, you know, if you're on the off chance you're going to upgrade those destroyers as well because you're already down the tech path, much better than a bunch of fighters that aren't going to get upgraded.
Definitely.
So I love that choice. And then of course the other big choice being, I mean, you took 2 home systems that game. Now in both so in the Nalu's instance,
Hakan
Hakan
was the first one.
Yeah. I do this every single time I get your game confused with another because of the position. But yeah, walk me through both of those home system grabs, because neither of them I don't think are obviously to your benefit, right? It's not like it's like this point is super obvious why he's taking that home system. So kind of walk me through both of those decisions.
Right. So the first one was Hakan's, and it became pretty apparent that Hakan had 5 dreadnoughts. And on that turn, I think it was turn 4. No, turn 4 was when we identified that Hakan was going to win before a level 2 secret had even been revealed yet.
Right.
And then turn 5, it was like, okay, Hakan is definitely getting up there. What could he do? And that was the turn he took his home system back from Ghosts. He had Imperial, and he had 5 dreadnoughts in his home system. And he had exactly 5 in his fleet supply. He had exactly 5 dreadnoughts. He could have left a dreadnought somewhere to defend himself a bit, or he could have left a dreadnought to try and take a point from the Ghost player from Imzin, and he chose not to. And in my mind, that meant he 100% has 5 dreadnoughts. Like, that's the only reason that he secures his home system like that and locks up his entire force in his home system.
Right.
And on top of that, every time he talked in the background, his kids were cheering for him.
Right.
It was like, it was very apparent that he was about to win. So in my mind, my War Suns were supposed to get me a 3rd tech skip that round, but they had to take out Hakan's home system or I was going to lose.
Right.
And afterwards, I did the math on that combat, and I was a 96% favorite to win, and I ended up only destroying 1 dreadnought.
Yeah, and that mostly comes down to that crucial emergency repairs that Hakan was able to pull out.
Definitely,
in the first round of combat. Huge deal. And so then going into the Ghost home system tank, that was more or less the same situation. So I guess the big takeaway for me and the big question to ask is, how do you take running purely defense for the board and then turn that into a win on the other side, right? By the end of round 6, you actually are lined up for a win where you were the muscle. So often we see players where like they have to be the muscle and take out other people's home systems, but that means they're completely sacrificing their chances for the win. So what did you have set up on the back end? How much work did you have to put into having everything available for you so that you could sacrifice 3 War Suns for other causes and then still get a win?
Yeah, it was definitely some planning. Before I got the ships in 6 systems secret objective, I had win a combat with your flagship. And the Muat flagship is a terrible flagship. It is really rough, and I didn't have a single fleet within range. On turn 5, I had taken Warfare, so I was intending to use Warfare on that flagship to win a combat with it, but then the ship moved away, so now I'm even more stuck, and ended up having to move the War Suns out with Warfare anyways. But I was trying to think what secret objectives haven't been scored that I could draw. Ships in 6 systems was definitely one. Blockading was definitely one. 4 of the same color was definitely one. There was a few things that were running through my head that I was trying to line up for, and everything that I needed required command tokens. So on the last turn, when someone popped leadership, I bought 8 command tokens with every influence and resource I needed. I didn't need to build more ships. Warfare was getting popped super early, so I couldn't... I'd already built the War Sun in my home system.
Yeah.
I didn't need anything else. I needed command tokens. So I ended up buying 8 command tokens, and at the end of the game had 1 spare. It was a bit of a lucky draw off the secret objective for sure to give me that ships in 6 systems, but I was trying to account for as many unscored secrets as I could.
Well, and I think that's what goes to show how well that can work is you had set up for that if that were going to be the case, right? Like you planned for multiple objectives to be the ones you would feed into. And so there could have been multiple stories where, you got the secret objective that would have been easy. It's not like Ships in 6 Systems was the only one that was going to get you something easier to do. Taking a secret objective in that final round is the smart decision. Getting getting the Ships in 6 Systems objectives is like getting the ace on the river, right when you need it or whatever.
Definitely.
It's that same story of just like, I stuck around. I made the bets I needed to make early on to make it to the river. I took the chance on getting that, and I got rewarded. And I think that's a really interesting and important point to note for people is like you got to put yourself in the situation to be able to have the good luck. If you don't do it, you're not going to get good luck.
Exactly.
So you got to take a couple risks every now and then.
How many times have you been in a game where you take someone's home system and they say, "Why are you doing this?" And you say, "Well, if you win, I can't." Right? So you're just setting yourself up for success later.
Exactly. Nine, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great, and we cannot wait to see you in the finals.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
So my favorite fact here is that Nine of Spades was a former professional poker player, which I continually see more and more connections between poker and TI than like any other game. Because while TI is a board game, I think there's so many things that are at the meta level that it becomes the same way that poker is a card game, but it is way, way, way more than a card game. And when you play poker, you're not playing the card game, you're playing your opponents.
Right.
And that is Nine of Spades' secret to his success is successfully playing his opponents and reading his opponents.
Can I make a connection to another player that has to do with this?
Yeah.
So I feel like Magi at times, Unaligned Magi has had a critique of TI and been kind of critical of it because of the RNG in it.
Yeah.
And that and I feel like he's kind of come around now, obviously. I mean, he's playing in this tournament. I think he likes the game.
Right, but that used to be... He stopped playing TI for a little while because he was sick of just the craziness and the RNG of it.
But I think this kind of poker comparison has to do with that RNG quality to this strategy game.
Yeah.
Because obviously poker is very much an RNG...
absolutely.
Game. You are.
It's gambling.
It's entirely
it is gambling.
It's literally entirely RNG.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like those connections make a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
And I actually love that we have somebody that is from that world.
Right.
Literally playing.
And it's perfect because it shows that he embraces that aspect of it. So I think the thing we can say about Nine of Spades' win, if he should win, is it's going to be some of the best TV. It's going to be just a really good show. I mean, his win in the knockouts was the best win of the tournament, right? Like, I don't feel like I'm being rude to other players when I say that. He fought tooth and nail, and he did crazy things, and came out with a win with the Embers of Muwat.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody, I don't know, if anybody in the tournament kind of like, about that. I mean, he won as Muwat. That's something that we're like that Nine has kind of already claimed is that he got a win at all with Muwat in the tournament.
Right.
And that it was in the semifinal part of it. It was in the knockout, but still the semifinals that we got our Muwat win, which was just wild. And his prelims game was wild. Like they were both.
He was a yin that just held on for dear life. Now he got some luck there too, right? And that is an integral part of his storyline is that like sometimes he needs a little bit of luck. He needs to flop an ace on the river, and sometimes you get it. So it's not that big of a like thing to say like luck can help. The difference is Nine of Spades knows when to play into luck and when not to, right? It's being setting yourself up for in situations where the luck can help you, rather than just like, I don't know, I'm playing and then sometimes I get lucky. He seeks out lucky opportunities.
I want to real quick, because I don't want to emphasize this aspect of him too much. I want to say that the thing that I really like about Nine of Spades' style is his eye on the other players. As far as like, he does a very good job of keeping track of. There's just times when we've been commentating and Nine will be almost. It's almost like he can hear us. I mean, he can't, but like,
but it feels like it.
He'll call stuff out that like we're talking about,
yep.
Dynamics that we're seeing, and all of these players have the ability to look at another player's setup and like read them.
Right.
But it is hard to play a whole game of Twilight Imperium and keep all of that in your head.
Right.
Especially on TTS, people have a tendency to get stuck in their own little world there. It's kind of wild sometimes, Nine's ability to read the other players as far as what objectives they're going for, or even what they meant by that thing they just said.
Yeah.
The Hollywooding moment. Is that what it was, Matt? When he called somebody out for...
Well, so we've gotten that backwards a couple times, but there was a moment, and now I'm getting them mixed up. There were two distinct moments, and the Hollywood thing was somebody else.
Oh, okay.
I believe. But the more important one, which I'm pretty sure was Nine of Spades, was when, and we didn't actually really do a good justice of calling this out on the episode where we described it, but there was a moment, and I think I just said this in the interview, so this is probably a repeat, but there was a moment where Kraken was talking, and Kraken has kids running around. He's got a bunch of kids at his house, and you could just barely, I mean, I say just barely, I wasn't paying attention to it, but apparently his kids were going, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," because he was about to win the game. And he had clearly leaned over and said, "Hey, I think I'm going to win. I think I'm actually going to get into the finals." And Nine of Spades caught his kids going, "Hey, wait, we should be taking a closer look at what Kraken has going on," because he clearly feels really sure in his own victory. We need to figure out what he has at his disposal. Time to send both of my war sons into his home system because I see that he has 5 dreadnought. Like, he caught that because of this completely above the table read on Kraken, which is just huge. I mean, you could Kraken's kids were yelling and talking and hanging out the whole game. So I had completely tuned them out. But for Nine of Spades to constantly have the awareness of like listening to Kraken's children to catch things, it's like a whole other level.
And the thing is too, I mean, this is I can say that I just messed up a good Yin Brotherhood game the other day because of this very aspect. We were in a situation where we had it was a game I was playing with Root actually, and several Patreoners and some people that had joined in, and it was super fun. But Naderade is
Naderade,
Naderade. So Naderade was playing a Soul, and he was at 9 points, and I had a path to win myself, but it had been ruined because I lost a combat that I had a 90% chance to win. Never mind. I don't need to talk about it. Why is that? That's not what this is about. The point is, we had, and I say we, but like the table was kind of teaming up against Soul. He had lost his home system, and we were kind of trying to figure out like what secret objectives could he have. Yeah. And we messed it up, and he had one. Like, he had it was an easy one, too. It was like one ship and an alpha and a beta.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why we missed it, though, because we had ghosts in the game, and they had a Kreus IFF token. And I feel like I looked at that and then didn't think about the Kreus IFF.
Right. That's funny.
But still, I'm saying, like, Nine is good at this thing. And, I've messed this up. People mess this up. Like, it's hard to read other players.
Well, and it's one thing to be like, I think they have this, and another thing to be like, this is exactly what we should do about it. You know what I mean? That's the big difference for me about Nine. Plenty of players can be like, hey guys, I think so-and-so is getting too strong, and we should do something about it. Nine of Spades gives you the plan for exactly how to deal with it. He forms coalitions against other players and leads them. Doesn't just tell other people to do stuff. He goes out and does stuff, or he'll pay you to do the thing to stop it, because he knows that's the only way he's going to get the win is if that person gets stopped. Other people will just throw up their hands and be like, if nobody stops so-and-so, he's just going to win. But it's like, well, then make some effort. Do something about it. Whatever you can. Fuel someone else's war against that player, or whatever it takes. That's what Nine of Spades pulls off.
I I want to say something about all the players real quick. Something a quality I think that they all share is a lot of clarity in how they speak when they're playing the game.
Oh, yeah.
That a lot of them are very specific when they're making deals about what they. I mean, I've specifically called this out in Schroeder. Magi is very economical. When if Magi's making you a deal, there's not a whole lot of talking normally involved. It's normally pretty straightforward, and a lot of these players are like really have that in common. And I feel like 9 does that on a level of like it's all pretty clear what he's saying.
Right.
And he is talking about other players' game states and everything.
Yeah, and I think all of that is them being especially good at TI4 on Tabletop Simulator. They know the weaknesses of the meta game in TTS, and they have found that what they have to do to combat that is to be incredibly clear. I don't think you would have to see all these players speak so clearly in just a home game where I can pull you off to the side real quick and make a deal, and we can be talking about it gradually because we can talk over and under each other. When one person can only talk at a time, you need to get your words in. Your time is very valuable.
Yep. That's something I really admire at them. Oh, we kind of skipped the part where we talk about 9 losing, so we need to imagine that.
So there are flaws to 9 of Spades thing, which is he is at the end of the day still a risk taker, right? He's still playing. He's a poker player, and so sometimes you don't get that ace on the river. He will make a big play, and sometimes all the dice can roll wrong, and you can fail. And we've seen him recover. But obviously there are situations where just like you don't recover from that. And he's not 9 of Spades is not one of those players who like we saw with Mage. Mage played L1 in both games, and in both games was pretty static in like, I'm slowly accruing points. I'm not going to go out and do this risky maneuver. I'll just hope to win the next round or the next round. If 9 of Spades has a shot to win in round 5, he's going to take it. Mm-hmm. And that might ruin his chances of winning if he fails to get it. Yeah,
I think regardless, his game will be it'll be fun to see how things play out for 9.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of different ways to kind of group these players up, and there was a point even where we were making like different. We were being really grandiose about how we were going to do this episode. We were making like different like continuums and like putting the players on different things. But I would say if Magi is a very consistent player, like it's like he's trying to be a computer and playing Twilight Imperium like that. 9 is a very like on the opposite side of that spectrum.
Right. Yeah. I want to just break them into 2 groups. Right.
Sure.
I want to say 9 of Spades, Schroeder, and Janor lean into the meta and rely on it, whereas Mage and Magi don't. Vaunt is a little bit there in the middle. Vaunt's using the meta, but he doesn't rely on it. But Mage and Magi are much more like, I'm playing the plastic game, and Vaunt has that element to him as well. So, those are my 2 distinct groups, and I'm glad that we have such an interesting makeup there because that's going to make for a good fight. We're going to see all of those philosophies butt heads now, and I'm pretty pumped to see how it goes down. But that comes later. That's on Saturday. Hunter, what were those times again?
Saturday, the game starts at 2:30 Central, 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern. The pre-show will start probably around 11:30 Pacific, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern. And I say it'll be around there, somewhere in there.
That's a soft window. Definitely by 2:30 we'll be game up and running.
If you want updates, watch our social media. I mean, we're probably about to do the rundown soon, but like just keep an eye on us, and you can follow our Twitch if you want to just go ahead and get prepared. That way you'll get the notification the second we go live. I believe we will probably start the day with me, EJ, Root, and Matt all on stream.
Yep.
I would hope to be able to steal Matt or Root at times. I don't know how stealable Root will be because he'll be recording the game.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fluid. It's going to be fun. And we are going to see one of these players win. And I got to tell you, they all have a lot of They're all quality players.
I don't have a prediction. At the end of the day, I do not have a prediction about who's going to win.
We
just made
really
a case for
either.
all of them, and I see every single one of those situations being a viable case.
And any of those things could happen. It's at the end of the day, it's still Twilight Imperium,
right?
But I mean, these players are also very different from each other. The way that they play is very different. Stylistically, there are a lot of connections you can make between them as players, but there's also a lot of things that really separate them. And I think a lot of this is like a kind of fun test of those philosophies. I will say that not to kind of, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of talk of this. What me and you have a lot to say about the idea of running a tournament. But to kind of just get it out there a little bit, I do think this whole idea is flawed. I think that might be fair to say now.
Just to really undercut the whole point of all of it. It was a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea at all. I love the data that we have because what we have that like you're not going to get anywhere else is we have a lot of data that we collected over people playing.
For the win.
Games for the win where they felt there were real stakes.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
And the way I think of Saturday's game is the completion of that arc. This Saturday is, it's I mean, I'm saying there's real stakes. It's not real stakes. These people are not playing for anything.
You do get one real
material.
steak shipped to you, and you will get steak seasoning and all of this. I will ship you a box of steak.
Oh, we should buy them Oklahoma Joe's barbecue because they ship it anywhere. That place is great. By the way, if you guys are ever, you think that's gross? I think that's great.
I've never had Oklahoma Joe's. You can rate Oklahoma Joe's.
Are you serious? You haven't had Oklahoma Joe's.
Hey, we're on iTunes. We're also on lots of podcast apps, and we would love it if you rated us on any of those podcast apps, but especially iTunes because it's the big one. You can follow us on Twitter. We'll post on Twitter when we go live. That's at SpaceCatsPod. You can also find us on Facebook. We'll also be posting about the tournament for Saturday on the Facebook, Space Cats Peace Turtles. We will continue doing posts on the tournament. I'm sure we'll try to have a bunch of wrap-ups. If you know what's fun, on the Twilight Imperium subreddit, r/Twilight Imperium, I'd love to hear other people's breakdowns of the finals game. People are always posting stuff about games they played. If you're hanging out with us on Saturday, not to like completely barrage, maybe we'll do like one global post of people talking about the game after it's been played or whatever, but I think it's a great place for discussion. We always have a lot. You can do all that discussion also on our Discord. Find the link in that Twilight Imperium post for this podcast episode. Discord is also where you can get Patreon benefits. We have a Patreon, and it's how you can contribute to the show, not only financially, but with your financial contribution, you get perks to help contribute to the show from a kind of production standpoint.
Right.
We have Galactic Council where you can vote on upcoming episodes. We'll play games with you if you're in the Goodyan Brotherhood. You can produce a whole episode for yourself if you're one of our space kitties. So please come check out our Patreon.
Also, I want to call out one specific thing with the Patreon real quick. Because there has been, I think, the most neglected tier has been the Steve Martin fan club.
Oh yeah, this tournament has been terrible for the Steve Martin fan club.
And that has not been that has not been great because we have not been able to do a lot of the stream content that we love to do.
Yep.
So the Steve Martin fan club hasn't really had a lot to do for a while. That era is almost over.
I mean, I'm literally like trying to plan a stream for the weekend after April 20th. I don't have it set in stone yet, so I wouldn't necessarily mark
420, baby.
But on 420, we're gonna try to play a game of TI and live stream it, and hopefully we can do more of those. So we'll be hitting up the Steve Martin fan club. Hey, I also want to thank our space kitties. I want to thank Kraken, Billy, TG Welch, Yin for Life, Patience is a Virtue, Dursta, Naderade, and Jim Bov.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, next week, at this point of the show, whenever we're doing the Patreon thanks, I am going to thank every single, and I want to just go ahead and do it now. I'm not going to read all of your names at this point, but I want to thank everybody that participated in the tournament.
Absolutely.
Every single person that played, that was very special for us.
Yep.
It was a lot of work. It was, according to a lot of YouTube comments, at times we seemed tired and moody.
And whiny.
Apologies
there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Apology, but like kind of like a mean one where I'm like not actually being that nice about it. Because let me tell you something. I can't even tell you how much Twilight Imperium I have watched now.
Right.
Like,
Hunter,
some of you brag about how much you've played.
Yes.
That's fine. Totally
That's fine.
get it. I've watched more than any.
What's funny is you, me, and Alec, Root, have probably watched more TI now than the majority of people have played. And I'm not saying that as a brag, but I'm saying most people do not get to play TI that often.
Sure.
And we have forced ourselves to just watch it for 25 games now.
Oh my God. and some of those games were 10-hour games. So it's like, I don't even know where to start with classifying how much time it was.
Yeah. It's a big one.
And you know what? It's so nice though, because I'm very excited for this final game, and I can tell by my mood about it, and that I just had coffee, that I am going. It's just going to be so enjoyable.
Yeah,
you know,
I can't wait. I can't wait.
It's very exciting. So please come check it out. 12:30 Pacific, 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern. Check it out an hour early for the pre-show if you're into that kind of thing, but we are kicking the game off at about that time.
Thank you for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles, and thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.